Four. Got it? Hello? Good morning again. Welcome back. I'd like to introduce to you our consultants, Mr. Ted and Dana Collins from Defend Security Solutions. Welcome. I'll let them tell you who they are. Where they're from, and what they're up to these days. Here you go, Ted.
Let's go ladies first. Ladies first.
Can I take this off? Is this okay? Okay. I'm going to lower this a little bit because I know I'm rather short, so I'm sure you guys don't just want to see a music stand instead of us. Well, my name is Dana Collins. This is Ted Collins. We started and run Defend Security Solutions. And basically just a little bit about who we are. We're first responders with over 35 years of experience. We lead a successful safety and security team at our church nearby in Eastlake. And we just have a God-given passion to help people with training and especially with emergency situations and whatnot. We've seen all of the stuff that's been going on in the world. You can't turn on the TV without seeing some kind of violence or attack or anything else. So God has definitely impressed upon our hearts that we should help people to prepare in case of emergencies, train people in ways of what to do in case something happens, and also just to be there to answer questions as things come up. So this is definitely where our passion is. Do you want to tell what we offer?
Good morning. So a couple things that we offer are obviously our safety training. So we go through and we can provide policies and procedures and different skill sets, things to think about. We offer first aid, CPR, AED training through the American Red Cross, vulnerability. Is that better? Testing. Sorry about that. We also offer vulnerability assessments, security protocols, and assistance in creating safety teams for churches and businesses. That was, like Dana said, that's the thing that was impressed upon us, was that we need to train places that don't have the resources necessarily to train with big companies and things. God spoke to us quite a bit, and we've been creating our safety team over the last 10 years. And through that trial and error, we want to save people the hassle and the tribulations that go with that, and hopefully distill those things to provide to different religious organizations and different small businesses safety plans that will work for them.
And plus, with our experience, Ted is a police officer, been in law enforcement for 25 years, 22 years?
22 years.
And I'm a 911 emergency dispatcher. So between the two of us, we've had a lot of experience, and we want to impart that as well upon you guys in order to train you, again, what to do in case there's an emergency that comes up.
So just a little bit, kind of the background on why we're here is that St. Mark's wanted a consultation to kind of figure out what's best for your church, what's best for your programs, what's best for you. Everything is individualized, and so we came in and looked at the basic layout to see what we can do to offer suggestions, and then let your staff decide what's best for you, because you guys know yourselves best. And we're providing training and insight in regards to the security measures for the church to help prepare the leadership and the congregation specifically for the needs that you all have.
And a lot of the stuff that we're going to cover today is just a basic overview of safety. But all of this can be used not only here while you're at church, but also when you're out and about, because sadly to say, there's no safe place in the world anymore. So if you're at the grocery store, the mall, the movie theater, restaurant, so on and so forth, these are some of the basic things that you can use with you wherever you go. So first point of the training is we're not trying to scare you, okay? We don't want you to think that there's gremlins underneath every bush and rock. You know, we try to take a really tough subject and try to make it a little bit easier to digest. So we don't want to scare you.
The biggest thing is we're trying to prepare you for different situations, not just here at church, but in everyday life. We've all seen the news, unfortunately. Things happen all over the place, and so that's really what we're trying to do, is distill it down to specifically church, but everywhere else as well.
So it's funny when we get this training, I always ask people, think of your mind as a Rolodex. Now, whoever had a Rolodex?
Everybody, but I think maybe Elsa.
Yes. When I used to give this training at San Diego State University, I kid you not, everyone was like, what's a Rolodex? I'm like, oh, I feel so old now. But yes, so if you think of your mind as a Rolodex, so if you're faced with an emergency situation and you don't know what to do, you're going to respond in 3 different ways: fight, fly, or freeze. And so flight and fight are great. You know, those are 2 ways to handle an emergency, but freeze is dangerous. So by putting something in that Rolodex, even if it doesn't quite match up with what we're talking about today, at least there's something in that Rolodex going, oh, when Ted and Dana came to the church and talked to us about it, this is what they said. So I can apply it to this situation. So again, we're just trying to fill your mind with some basic information, so that way, if an emergency were to come up, you'd be able to handle it quickly.
One disclaimer is that we're probably never going to give you the exact situation that you may encounter. We're just giving you a baseline so that, again, so you don't freeze. You go, hold on a sec, well, it didn't look exactly like that, but that part and that part and that part makes sense, and I'll formulate a plan.
We'll get more into the fight and flight and freeze and stuff later too. But first, we're going to talk about calling 911, because that's the bare basic of any emergency that ever occurs, is dialing 911. I can speak to this quite a bit because obviously 911 emergency dispatcher, there may even be a good chance you talk to me on the phone. I'll be that dulcet voice you hear on the other line in case of an emergency. So in calling 911, we don't expect anything to happen, but we want to be prepared just in case. And up there on the screen, you'll actually see not only 911, but also the non-emergency number for Chula Vista Police Department as well. I keep these numbers in my phone for every agency nearby. So that way, if I happen to go into La Mesa to go to Grossmont Mall someday and there's an emergency, I have their number, so I can call if need be. So when you're calling 911, if there's an emergency, when you dial, the first thing that they're going to ask you is what's your address. Why do you think they're going to ask you what your address is first? So they can know where to find you. So they're going to ask you for your address before anything else. Before they ask if you need police, fire, paramedics, anything else, they're going to ask you for your address. Simply because if you're talking to the police department and your phone drops for some reason, then we have an address we can start sending help to while we try to call you back. So they're going to ask you for your address. Please try to memorize the addresses of the places that you know best. So for instance, this location, or your home address, or so on and so forth. If you can't give an address, give cross streets. Hey, I'm at Hilltop and I right now, I need help at this church. So that way we can know where to send the help. One of the hardest things is when people say, I'm at Starbucks. There's 37,000 of them in San Diego. Which one are you at? So, please keep in mind, if you don't know the exact address, say, hey, I'm at Home Goods up in Eastlake. Give us a location that's going to be easiest for us to try to find. Also your phone number. So again, in case that call hangs up, we can call you back right away so we can get further information. They're going to ask your name, and then if you need police, fire, or paramedics. And it's going to be that quick. Do you need police, fire, or paramedics? Please don't be upset if the dispatcher on the phone is very quick with you. We're trying to get the help as fast as humanly possible. So it's not that we're not compassionate, we really are, but we want to help you the best way that we can and the fastest way possible.
And one thing to know is that when dispatch is taking that call, they're already sending resources. So you can say, get here quicker, get here quicker. Officers are getting to you as quickly as possible, or ambulances or fire trucks. They're trying to get the information so that they know what they're getting into when they get there.
Right.
So don't assume that you have to wait till the phone call's over before somebody gets sent. They're already going.
And then the last thing would obviously be to explain what the emergency situation is. If you are not sure, if you had somebody just say, hey, I need you to call 911. Okay, I'm calling 911 because somebody instructed me to. So that way we can try to figure out what the situation is. Later on, we can get into what's an emergency versus non-emergency, but you know what? If you're in the middle of a situation and it's an emergent situation to you, just dial 911. We can always transfer you to a non-emergency number if a situation is needed, but I'd much rather you call to start the help than to not call because you're not sure if it's a 911 or a non-emergency situation. But if you have questions about that, at the end of our presentation, we're going to have lots of opportunity for questions and answers, and we can help you with discerning the difference between the non-emergency and emergency situation.
Unless it's on Thanksgiving and you want to know how to cook a turkey. That is not an emergency.
I've taken that call.
We
Yes.
get those quite often.
Yes. I have a 12-pound turkey. How long do I cook it? They don't teach us that at 911 school, unfortunately.
So when you call 911, you need an address, right? That's the first thing. So know where you're at. After that, we need to know what's going on. What is the call and who's involved. The most important part is what's, who's the bad guy, who's the good guys. We need to know all that because when you come in, maybe the pastor's dealing with somebody. Well, we may not know pastor's in her, sweats and a t-shirt, right? She's not wearing her collar or wearing an outfit that looks pastoral, right? You're coming in, you're working in the yard, whatever. We may not know who the bad guy is when we get there. Best bet is to provide a description of the suspect or the subject. It doesn't necessarily have to be a suspect, right? They could just be having an issue, not committing a crime. But then we also need to know who's helping them so that we know kind of where to focus our energies if something goes wrong as we walk up. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that.
We're just used to being really loud.
Yes. So race. Now, do we care about race? Because we're going to talk about it because everybody gets a little concerned about that question. What we need to know is the description of what the person looks like so that we can identify the person that we're talking about. Gender, age, height, weight, color of hair, whatever color of clothing. Like if they're wearing, all black or a Lakers outfit, those are important. The more you give us, the more we can hone down the description of who we're looking for. And again, whoever's helping them, if you describe the person in, say, a green fleece jacket, khaki pants, and that's the person that's helping them, I know that that's the person helping them, and that person is no longer on my radar as the subject of the call that we're initially going to, other than they're there as a representative to help out. When you get to vehicles, color, make, model, license plate, if you don't know the make, if you don't know it's a Ford, Fiesta, you go, I don't know, it's a small hatchback. Okay, we can work with that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know it's an LX version or it's, got the wheels on it. Just give us what you can. If it's got dents or, stickers or things like that, things that are going to stick out, try and remember those little facts.
And a lot of this is going to be prompted by your 911 dispatcher as well. So usually I'll walk through the whole process with somebody. I don't just say, well, what does that person look like? I usually say, are they white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern? And then also go through, okay, so is he male or female? Male, he's 6'3", he's, 280 pounds, he's wearing a gray shirt, khaki pants. They're also going to ask, are they carrying anything such as backpacks, anything like that? And also weapons. Do you see any weapons? Now, weapons can include guns, knives, bazookas, things like that. But also keep in mind if somebody has a long stick or, somebody's waving their keys around, that could be a potentially dangerous situation as well. So be as specific as possible with your 911 dispatcher about what it is that you're seeing. Because you're our eyes and ears. We don't know what's going on, you do. And so we are relying upon you to give us the most accurate information so that way when our officers get there, they 100% know what's actually happening.
And then if the person leaves the area, say the person takes off before we get there, one of the things we ask is direction of travel. Direction of travel as best you can figure it out. Towards the ocean would be west, right? But if you're from the East Coast, that might be a little different for you, or you may not know. You may be like, I am completely turned around. They went towards I Street. Okay, we can work with that. We know that that's east-west, but just as best you can, give us the best direction you can. Or they disappeared, they walked off the patio, and I don't know which direction. That's okay. If you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. And last thing is how many subjects are involved. Is it a group of people? Is it one person? Is it two? Just give us the best count you can. If it looks like they're looking out for somebody or they're acting in a way you feel like there's another person involved, let us know that. Hey, I only see one person, but it appears like they're looking or reacting to somebody else. That gives us a heads up on to how many officers to send.
We're going to cover more questions if you have any of those at the end, so please hold on tight to any questions that you may have. Again, we're just going to do quick little snippets of different safety features, but we'll be open to answering as many questions that you have at the end. So for fire emergencies, so by state law, there has to be fire extinguishers located near main exit and entrances within buildings. So that being said, I see one over there, 2 of them right there. So if you're ever using a fire extinguisher, if there's ever a fire, then first and foremost, evacuate. Get people out, quick, quick, quick. Get people out of the building, because fires are unpredictable, they get spread real fast, and we don't want to have anybody in any harm's way. The other part of that too is if there's a fire extinguisher, only use it if the fire is up to your knees. If it's any farther than that, then get out, because it'll spread fast. The other thing, don't use more than 1 extinguisher. So if you use it and it goes out, because it only lasts a few seconds once you actually use the fire extinguisher, don't go find another one and then come back and try to put it out again. Just use the one. If that doesn't work, get out, and the fire department's already on the way. Make sure you designate somebody to actually call 911 in order to start the fire department. As you're doing that and they're evacuating, you can ask somebody to call 911. So in order to use a fire extinguisher, we have the PASS acronym. So you pull the pin, aim, squeeze, and sweep. We don't want to aim at the top of the flames, because that's not going to do much. We're going to aim at the bottom of the flames to try to put it out completely.
And one of the things is, if something, say it's your cell phone, because that's one of the big things that catches fire. I'm sure people have seen videos online. If it's something like that, it's in your hand and you can get it out to an outside spot where there's concrete or something safely, then quickly get it out, great. If not, leave it in place, try and get a fire extinguisher on it. Electronics most of the time are not going to go out with a fire extinguisher. Same with grease fires. If something's in the kitchen, you're making French fries or something, that is not going to go out with a regular fire extinguisher. There are specific fire extinguishers for different things. So there's a kitchen-specific fire extinguisher, and then most of the fire extinguishers now are ABC, so it's like wood and other combustibles. So just know that there's a difference. Kitchen ones are usually white or silver, and then the regular ones are red.
Yeah, the K ones, which are specifically for kitchen, are usually white or silver in color. Usually they're a little bit bigger because you're going to need a little bit more foam in order to be able to put it out. So an important thing, if there's ever a fire evacuation, if an alarm goes off, somebody says fire, something like that, the most important thing is to look for the closest exit and just get out. We're not going to stop and pick up our purses and, hey, I got to go talk to Susie and whatnot first. Just get up and go. That's going to be your best bet. Exit through the closest exit. Assist people with physical disabilities if you can. Sometimes it's a little bit harder for some people to move a little faster, so try to help the people evacuate who are probably having a little harder time. In this situation, we would highly recommend that if you were to exit, go all the way out past the parking lot into that grass field. That's going to be your best bet to try to muster. Now, why do we muster people together afterwards? Because we want to get a head count. Because we want to know there's 57 people in this room right now, and there's 57 people out there by the time you're done mustering. Because if there's 56, somebody's still inside. And now we have to tell the fire department there's potentially a person inside somewhere. So always come together, always get a head count, try to figure out that everybody's present. The other part of that too is do not go to your cars and drive away. That's very important.
Yeah, if you were to drive away or get into your cars, say the fire department's 2 blocks away, and as you're getting in your car to try and get out, they're trying to come in. You've now clogged the entrance point, and it's delayed the fire department or whoever's trying to get here to rescue you. So we recommend stay away from your cars, wait till all emergency crews are in, and then they will evacuate you later on to get you out of your cars. Exactly. You're also trying to keep track of everybody, and if you get in your car and take off, well, we think there's 56 people when there should be 57, and we don't know you're gone. We're going to send somebody into a building to make sure that you're safe.
And do not return into the facility, back in the facility, until the fire department deems that it's clear. Same way with an earthquake. If you have to get out and muster, don't enter back in if there's damage to it until the fire department says, okay, it's safe to enter into again.
Okay, so now we're going to go talk about unruly people. So unruly can be a lot of different things, right? They could have punched somebody. Now it's a physical attack. Little different than just somebody coming into the church service, and maybe they're having an issue today. Maybe, we were talking about the greetings earlier. Chris was speaking about that. When you greet people, that's important. And what you don't understand with that sometimes is that you're the first line of defense for your church or your business. Saying hi to people either A, lets them know that you're paying attention to them and it's welcoming and they feel like God's brought them in, and that's great. That's wonderful. It also tells bad guys that you're paying attention. So the first thing about customer service I ever learned was, look, if you think somebody's up to no good, you look them in the eye and say, hi, can I help you? They now know that you have registered a picture of them in your head, right? Okay, now I have a snapshot. Ooh, is the bad guy? Maybe I don't want to be noticed. The more I'm noticed, the more they're going to give a description to the police. That's a bad thing. So that may just fight crime right there. If it doesn't, at least you have a description. You know what's going on. Or say somebody walks in and you go, I don't recognize this person. They look like something might be going on, either mentally, physically. First off, we want to pay attention to the people that are coming in for their safety, right? So if somebody's having a bad day or a medical issue, we want to at least check on them, see how they're doing, say hi, and they go, oh, you know what? Maybe they're just having a bad day. Something just happened. My stocks went in the tank. My goldfish died. Something like that, right? It may just be something simple. It might be something more that it's a mental health issue. Does that mean we don't let them come into church just because of a mental health issue? Absolutely not. So we're going to greet them, make them feel loved, get them whatever they need, water, coffee. Just check on them. Maybe that's all they needed. Maybe they were just having a hopeless moment. Maybe it's a more severe mental health issue, and maybe they're having very, thoughts of suicide or something like that. By speaking to somebody, you may garner that, and you go, you know what, this is a little above being at church and community. We need to call law enforcement, or we need to call the mobile crisis response team or somebody to help them out. Something different than your standard love them for an hour, love on them, and then get them back on path and get them out the door. So just little things like that you can tell usually when you're talking to people. You go, ooh, okay, this is going to be more than our normal give a hug and provide God's love. And that's okay. People need help, and so you're going to notice that as they come in, and as you greet them, you can make that assessment.
And if there is an unruly person that does come into the church, please keep in mind this is private property, that you have the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason. So if somebody's coming in, acting violently, not going with the program, not doing what they need to be doing, you have every right to say, I'm sorry, but you need to leave now. And if that person becomes either violent or they're aggressive or whatnot, that's an immediate call over to 911 and get some help up. Yeah.
Better to get the resources coming to you, and say you diffuse the situation, like apparently last year, you're able to walk that person off property, great. No problem, no harm, no foul. We'd rather get there and find out that it's no longer an issue versus it starts escalating and we're not coming, and all of a sudden now it's violent, and now we're having to play catch up to get there. So again, it may start as a non-emergency call. You may go, hey, this person's just acting kind of, strange. They're screaming or yelling or look upset, but they're not really doing anything necessarily. Law enforcement can start heading that way, and you go, oh, they just punched, Chris. Okay, we would step it up and make it a priority to get here. So little things like that, but if we're already on our way, it's a lot easier than nobody says anything, and now, like I said, now it's violent, and now it's just pandemonium, and we're trying to catch up.
And there's a progression to things, like Ted was saying. If they show up and they're just acting weird, not quite going with the program or yelling, screaming, something like that, non-emergency. The point in time they start getting belligerent, refusing to leave, pushing your boundaries, refusing to get off property, just pushing that. If somebody's being belligerent and aggressive to the point that they're refusing to leave, and they're pushing into your property, pushing into your physical space, then yes.
It may be a non-emergency. Life and limb is kind of the 911 line, right? If you think it's going to step up to that point, absolutely call 911. Mm-hmm. If it's just they're being unruly and you want them to leave, that'd be more of a non-emergency. at the time, but you can, again, always call 911 if you're on the hold, you're waiting for the phone call to come through on non-emergency, and all of a sudden something changes and it becomes life or limb type emergency, hang up and call 911. That's totally okay.
Basically, your safety is number one. If your safety is threatened and somebody is threatening your personal safety, then yes, that would be a,
Pastor? Correct. So you can't just push somebody out the door, right? You would ask them, hey, this is private property. We are asking you to leave. If they refuse to leave at that point, then you would call law enforcement. Law enforcement can come out and ask them to leave too. If they refuse to leave at that point, then you can do what's called a citizen's arrest, place them under arrest for trespassing.
we can get more into that in a little bit if you like, about the nitty-gritty of
Yeah, I
that.
mean, there's a lot of different legal issues with trespassing and different notifications and things. So it's a little more nuanced than just yes or no. But those are the basics that you would request them first. Because again, you want to solve your own problem, right? You don't want to get law enforcement involved if you don't have to. So you would ask them to leave, and then that also gauges their compliance on what they're going to do.
I know we're going through all of this very quickly, and again, we're going to have more time for questions at the end, so please hold on tight to those questions.
And again, this is just a sampler platter of kind of the basic topics as we delve into it a little bit more as we go through everything with the church. Okay, so we're going to talk about lockdowns. There's a couple of different types of lockdowns. We're not trying to scare you, but just different things that happen. Children learn this in schools nowadays. It's kind of like our earthquake, tornado warning type stuff. We go through these now just to set your mind again with a small example of it, so you know what people are talking about when they say, hey, lockdown. Oh my goodness, that sounds terrifying. And it might be, but it also might be something more like there's something going on the patio, and they just don't want you to get involved because it's going to cause more issues than just shutting the doors and directing somebody out the back door.
So let's go back to what we're talking about, fight, fly, and freeze. So everybody has one of these three things. Typically, people freeze if they don't know what to do in an emergency situation. So again, that's where we're putting that stuff in the Rolodex. And we have fight, where people will actually stand up and go toward the danger. And we have flight, which is people who stand up and run from the danger. Neither is wrong. Both of them are okay. Who is a flight person? Like, I'm running, I'm getting out of Dodge, I'm going to bring all the people with me.
It's totally okay.
It's okay.
We're not, this is not a yes or no, pass or fail. This is just something to think about. Are you the person that's going to step up and fight if necessary? Or are you the person who's like, you know what, it seems like a better plan to get out of here and get out of the way because I'm a lover, not a fighter. That's totally okay. Don't ever feel that that's not the right solution, because that actually might be a better solution than fighting. It just depends on the situation.
And typically we find that people that, for instance, Ted and myself, we're both fighters. So if a situation comes up, we're going to go head toward it and try to figure out what to do, how to fix it, what's going on, and assess the situation. So either way, there's nothing wrong with fight or flight. Just knowing what you are inside will help you in an emergency situation. Are you going to be the person who's going to say, hey, I'm going to stand up so all these people can go, or are you going to be leaving and taking as many with you as you can?
The only thing we don't want you to do is freeze, and that's why we're giving you this information, because freezing gets you hurt most of the time. There are very few times where a freeze would actually help you, but a lot of times where it will hurt you or somebody else. So that's kind of why we want you to think about it ahead of time, is like, oh yeah, I would totally be the person that goes out the back door. That's okay. Totally fine. Just you need to know in your heart kind of what your step would be.
So in locking down, St. Mark's leadership will actually provide a code word to call for a lockdown. And basically, when you're in at least that's what we had talked about. But medical and emergency. Okay. Okay.
And I would not say putting that on any kind of forum right now until we fully decided.
Not on any video. Yeah.
And that's fine. We can do that off camera.
Yeah. So basically, when you hear the lockdown word, what you do in any lockdown is go to a location that's going to be securable. whether into a bathroom, whether into the sacristy, whether it's downstairs and locking yourself into one of the classrooms. Somewhere that you can go, lock a door, and basically protect yourself in a smaller area that nobody can get to from the outside.
Out of sight is out of mind. That's really the biggest thing. And they teach at all of the different active shooters that they've ever had, any of the issues. If you're not able to be seen by the suspect, remember, people trying to cause damage are trying to do it as quickly as possible because law enforcement is on their way. So if it were some kind of violent intruder, the quicker you can get out of sight and lock things down and put things in their way, whether it's tables, chairs, junk, whatever it is, those things will slow things down, which gives law enforcement more time to get here to help deal with the situation.
So unfortunately, in the past, there's always been hostage situations. Unfortunately, times of hostage situations are no longer. Now, unfortunately, people who are violent intruders, active shooters, their whole idea is body count, basically. They're trying to exact as much damage as they can in a shorter period of time. And I hate to say it like that. I know it's scary to hear it. But at the same time, if you can't be seen, they're going to find the easiest way to try to get as many people as possible. So if a door is open, if it's easy to walk in, so on and so forth, that's what they're looking for. If you are hiding in a room with the doors locked and lights off and they don't know you're in there, that they're not going to be searching out for you. They're going to move on to the next easiest location or easiest target possible. So what you need to do is make yourself a hard target.
Say you're at the mall and you're going shopping and you hear what you think is shots fired. The last thing you want to do is stand in the hallway, right? You want to get into a store. Once you get into a store, you want to go find a place where you can hide behind something. They have what's called cover and concealment. Cover is like a concrete wall, brick, something like that. Concealment is the clothing rack, where you sit in the middle like your kids used to do when you sat there and hid from the parents, right? That's still something. That's better than nothing. But the more you can provide something in between you and them, a big rock, a support pillar, any of those things is going to be better than not getting behind something. So little things like that. As you're walking to the bank, you go, well, the vault door is that way, and I know it's 3 feet of steel or whatever. Okay, if something goes south in here, I'm going to work that way towards the vault. Little things like that. As you're walking into places, just start looking at things. You'll look at it differently. If you kind of go, okay, emergency exit is that way. Okay, you know what? That stained glass is probably not the best thing to hide behind, but you know what? A pew would be pretty good. A pew gives me some cover. Little things like that as you go through your daily life. I know it's unfortunately the sign of the times, but little things like that will help your mind prepare ahead of time. So if something does go wrong, you go, oh, Ted and Dana talked about that, and then I thought about it, and you know what? When I walked into this store, I thought about that wall right there. My brain's going to go right towards that wall, whether you had any conscious thought about it or not, because your brain's going to go, we talked about this body, let's get over there.
And to lift a lockdown, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself a little bit. To lift a lockdown, you're going to receive a specific word from the leadership as well. If somebody tries to come into the room that you're in without giving you the all clear lockdown lifting word, or without declaring who they are, the fight is on. The fight is on. Basically, anybody who comes through that door that has not given you an all clear, you fight, and you're literally fighting for your life. So you fight with everything. We'll get into that in a little bit too. So basically how to do a lockdown. Again, we're going to go into a room, we're going to lock the doors. We're going to stay quiet, out of sight, turn off the lights, barricade the doors, turn your ringers, and vibrate off your phone. Because I know we've all done it where we've been in like a quiet room and something's on vibrate, sitting on a table and you're right? We've all heard that. So again, that sound travels, so we want to make sure that that sound is not heard outside of the room that you're at. So make sure everything is on mute. Did you know you can actually text 911 now? You can text 911. It's the same thing. If you text 911, give your address. Here's my address. I'm hiding in a closet, active shooter situation. Boom. We will have people descending on this place. So please keep in mind, if you can't talk, you can text 911. So we always tell people, hey, can you talk? If they say, no, this is a dangerous situation. Okay, fine, we'll do everything over text. So if you are locked down in a situation, just text to 911. Let them know what's going on in that situation. You're being quiet, your phone's not making any noises, but you can at least text. but turn down the light on your screen a little bit, because in a dark room, that bright blue light up in your eyes. So again, we want to be cautious of trying to make sure we're hiding.
You know, one of the major things is also, you know your church very well. You know a lot of your businesses or your house, you know, all the places you go on a normal basis, you know a little bit more about. The more you know, the more you're prepared. So places to get out of the way, like, you know where the restrooms are. You know where downstairs is. You know where things are. So think about those and you're like, okay, I can hide here. This seems like a good place to hide. I know where that door locks. I know that door doesn't lock and there's nothing behind it to push in the way. I may not want to go to that particular room. So just little things to think about as you go through it. Again, we're not trying to scare you on every possible situation that you walk into everything with your head on a swivel and, you know, prepared like a ninja. But we do want your head on a swivel a little bit. We want you to think about these things as you walk into rooms and just really assess, okay, if there's a fire in the back auditorium, where do I go? Oh, I go forward. If there's something to the side, I go this way. Again, it doesn't just apply to lockdowns or to, you know, shootings or anything else. It's for fires, earthquakes. What if there's an earthquake? Okay, well, once everything stopped shaking and nothing fell on me today, I want to go to the closest exit. Well, that exit is that direction. Okay, great. Your brain again knows, and so you're not lagging behind trying to get out of things.
The most important part about a lockdown is please don't open the door, don't look for whoever's out there, so on and so forth. Once that door is shut, that door stays shut. And the other thing too, at least at our church, we have big windows. So I always had to tell people, please don't do the whole out the window, right? Because if you can see them, they can see you.
You're not an orca in a David Attenborough special going, I see the seal. Just stay underneath. Stay down as far as you can.
Yes.
If you can cover yourself with something, cover yourself with something. If there's a sheet, or like in here, you know, I know you guys make beautiful quilts. If you were in the quilting room, cover yourself in quilts. Just try and make yourself as least visible as humanly possible.
So we're going to move on to the fight aspect of that in case like somebody does come through that door. So first, before anything, we always talk about the OODA loop, because in order to fight, you need to know what the OODA loop is. So an OODA loop means observe, orient, decide, and act. Your brain does this 500,000 times a minute, because anytime you go to pick up your coffee, anytime you turn to see somebody, anytime that you want to pick up your car keys, drive a car, so on and so forth. Basically, in order to do anything, I have to, like if I was going to move this stand, I have to observe where it's at, orient myself to pick it up, decide to pick it up, and then lift. Now, that being said, if you actually interrupt that OODA loop, then it gives your brain, you have a few seconds that your brain has to readjust to everything again and then start the process all over. So then if I wanted to observe about picking up the stand, now I have to reorient myself all over again because he pushed my hand away. So it takes a few extra seconds in order to go through the process again. A few seconds may not seem like a lot, but when you're fighting or when you're protecting yourself, it can be a long time. So it can give you the opportunity to get closer to the person, to hit the person, to run away, to whatever it takes. Basically, those extra seconds will save the assailant.
Yeah, so, and that's anything. So right. Did everybody seen Terminator or kind of knows the gist of Terminator, right? There's a robot and he's got screens up in his eyes, and in his mind, he's assessing targets. Your brain does that on every day. As you're driving, you're doing thousands of calculations every minute. Too fast, too slow, that car's over there. That guy's playing on his cell phone while he's driving all of these little things. Some guy's playing a trumpet in the driver's seat. I've seen it, it was weird. There are different threats to you in every given situation. Your brain processes that kind of in the background. You don't even think about it consciously most of the time. That's the same thing. That's your OODA loop. That's your, okay, I'm going that direction. I want to go that speed. Everything's fine. Oh, somebody just cut me off. I have to make a new decision. That's an OODA loop. It doesn't always have to be physical. Yes, ma'am. Okay, perfect. So the more you interrupt, the better off you're going to be. Again, that's seconds that count for law enforcement to get there, to deal with the situation.
And again, that's if the person were to come in the room where you're at. So moving on, when we talk about fighting, we realize not everybody has the same physical capabilities. I mean, he has years and years and years of experience fighting with people, so I'm sure, his skills are a little bit different than the average Joe, and he's trained to deal with more situations than all of us. So if you are in a situation where you do have to fight, there's a few different options. You can either swarm, which means multiple people try to come at this person at once. You can throw objects, scream, cause a distraction, cause confusion. One thing at a preschool that we teach this at is we always tell them just throw paper up into the air, because then it has that snow effect as it comes down. So you're like, gee, what's going on here,
For something like that, again, that's your OODA loop, right? Your OODA loop is counting each single piece of paper in your brain, identifying it whether it's a threat or not. When somebody throws something at your face and you flinch, that's your brain trying to assess whether it's a threat or not. So little things like that will trigger somebody's mind to have to go, hold on, I got 50 targets. Okay, let me figure, okay, none of those are a threat. I'll move on to the next thing. But again, it's a second or two that adds to the time.
And throwing stuff at people like coffee cups, so on, so shoes,
Hot
purses,
coffee's great.
Anything you can throw.
And screaming. Yes, exactly. So like your hymn books and your Bibles in here, you know what? Sometimes God needs to reach out and hit and touch somebody a little more personally, right? Like, because that's a thick, solid book that will not only cause that fluttering effect from the paper, but it's going to cause a little bit of damage as it hits them, right? So we'll just think about those things as you get through it. There are different ways to defend yourselves, whether it's just screaming, swarming, fighting, throwing books, throwing staplers, throwing your shoes, ladies with your high heels. Those things are dangerous. I've seen them go through windshields.
So again, we're touching on all this really fast. So, if anybody would like further information, we're happy to provide any of that later. But for the sake of time, we're going to move on to escaping.
So flight, where's our flight people? That's your bread and butter, right? Escape. Thinking about where to escape to. Thinking about who to take with you. If somebody has got a disability or, a wheelchair, a walker, things like that. Somebody freezes for a second. They could be my size and, you're like, oh, they're going to be a fighter, and they turn into a freezer. Got to help them out if you can. But to that point, say somebody freezes and they don't want to get out of the fire. They don't want to get out of something. It's not worth your life to help somebody else. You have to protect yourself first, or you're no good to anybody. So try and get it to work. Try and get somebody out. As long as they're moving, they're great. But if they freeze and they're my size, you're not going to pick them up and carry them with you, right? You'd have to leave me. So just things to think about. It's not a perfect world, so we're going to have to do the best we can.
Also with escape too is don't go to the lot and try to drive away, just like before, because you're going to have first responders arriving and converging on this place. The other part of it too is don't muster at the lot. Because yes, you may be out of the building, but if there's a violent intruder in here and they see a whole bunch of people mustering in the lot, they're like, oh, there they all went. So make sure that you run. Run. Just
keep running. Keep running. We'll catch up to you, like the Route 91 shooting out in Vegas. People ran onto the airport runway because they just kept running. They weren't sure how far the shots were going to go. That's the kind of run we're talking about if you can, or the movement at least. Nobody has to sprint if you don't want to, but if you can, the fastest you can move.
So basically the point of all this training is, especially with lockdowns, is anything is better than nothing. So in any emergency situation, anything is better than nothing. So even if it's just, okay, I have to call 911, then the rest of the law enforcement and fire and paramedics will take care of it. At least you took that step. So anything is better than nothing. And ultimately, your safety is our only concern. Your safety is absolutely our only concern in telling you any of this. And we're always happy to provide further information, further training, get into the nitty-gritty about stuff.
So to prepare yourself, kind of give yourself an idea, if you haven't watched it, Department of Homeland Security created a video called Run, Hide, Fight. There are two versions of it. One is a little more violent, I guess, or a little more visual, graphic, and one is less so. The first one is from a couple of years ago. It's in an office building. We recommend that one if you're a little sensitive to any of the violence. Yes, there is violence in there, but as far as the visuals are a little less. It's an incredibly good video. It's well done. It's about 6 minutes of your life. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. And they put it out for everybody to kind of understand you could be anywhere and an active shooter situation happens, and gives you a little more reinforcement on that run, hide, and fight. And that's on the Department of Homeland Security's website.
And it comes in, I believe, 27 different languages as well. So Run, Hide, Fight is a huge benefit, a huge tool and resource.
And if you watch it on YouTube, because I believe it's on YouTube as well, YouTube can self-translate to a bunch of different languages as well.
So I know that was a lot, and we basically gave you a whole bunch of information, drinking from the fire hydrant, but again, we just wanted to give you little snippets of information to help with safety and security. We are obviously open to helping out with anything else that you may have. We do have time for questions and answers. If it gets close to time for the next service, we've been instructed we can go out to the patio or to Jacobson Hall, so we can continue questions and answers and comments if you like.
And just know that the church here is trying to get you prepared as best they can for any given emergency, and just trying to, that's what they're going forth on this, is to get those little things thought about so that you don't have to worry about it later on. And I'm sure we can probably put the link in the next week's newsletter.
I have a scenario for you guys and exactly what to do. So, what if, let's say we're at BDS camp, and then right in front across, there's like 6 polices with like 6 rifles shooting like at a house. Would we have to still call 911? I know we would have to go on lockdown, but do we still have to call 911? And how would we know when it's like the green light to go? We would be on lockdown.
So a lot of times law enforcement will reach out to the churches or the schools and tell you that there's a lockdown in place, or you see that, you go lockdown and you call the non-emergency line and go, hey, we see officers with weapons. It looks like they're shooting at a house. They'll say lockdown for now, shelter in place, and then they'll let you know, they'll say, hey, can you call us back when you're clear or whenever you're ready for us to evacuate? And they can provide that as well. It depends on the law enforcement agency, but I know that it's happened at our church before where they've called us and said, hey, we know you have a school on your property, go ahead and lock it down for right now, and we'll let you know when everything's clear. And we've also done it ourselves where we go, that looks bad, let's lock it down, and then we call them back later, hey, it looks like everything's cleared up, can we let everybody go? And they'll go, yes.
What should our actions be upon a response by the police department? If there's a large number of us running or gathered someplace, when you guys show up, what should our response be?
Comply with it. So if law enforcement shows up, comply with any orders they give. My recommendation is put your hands up and away from your bodies as much as possible so that you obviously are not the threat. That's really what they want from you. And understand if law enforcement comes in on a situation of a violent intruder, they're probably not going to be nice about it at first because they're trying to end the threat. So whatever that threat is, they want people complying, moving on, and getting out of the way. They may direct you somewhere. Just keep your hands up and away from your body as best you can.
Another question? Okay, one more question, and then we need to close and go ahead and get ready for the 11:15 service.
All right, I'm loud enough to try to make this, but, oh, you okay. Given our situation with some older folks with limited mobility, what are your best suggestions? Medical alert, fire alert, gotta get them out of the building quickly. That's a grave concern. I mean, we've got folks that we love that don't move fast. And so what do you suggest?
So it depends. So like your walker is also kind of a wheelchair. If you can put him if he can get into the seat, roll him out as best you can. But start thinking about those things, like what exit is best. If there's a fire in the foyer, which way would you go? You'd go out this way, right? Well, does that have access? Or you might have to carry him. A person that's a little more able-bodied may have to pick him up and carry him. Maybe two of you,
Should we be labeling the ADA access points, the exit sign? It says exit. Should there be a wheelchair saying you can get out this way and there's no steps?
That's not a bad idea. It's something the church can think about.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank Ted and Dana for being here today. Let's give them a hand.
Good idea.
Just so you know, they're going to be here for a long time. There are our consultants, and we're working with them on a continuing basis as we prepare not only for the childcare, the VBS, and other things. We're going to continue to work with them to have everything in shape. Probably take us a year or so. Would you like to have another presentation like this at sometime in the near future? Yeah. Okay. So we'll work on that. Thank you so much. We're just grateful for you to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're just glad somebody actually gets that now with the Rolodex.